Good evening and welcome to St. Joseph's Church here in Geevagh. During Holy Week, we accompany Jesus as he journeys towards his death. Primarily, we think on his physical suffering, the torture that he endured, and indeed his gruesome crucifixion. But Jesus also suffered emotionally and psychologically. And during these days, we reflect also on his betrayal and indeed on his abandonment by his friends. In reflecting on these things, his betrayal and abandonment, we will see the relevance and significance they have for us in this present time. An opportunity for us to reflect on our own fragile nature and our own vulnerability. The Taking of Christ, the painting beside me, was painted by the Italian Baroque artist Caravaggio, or to give him his full name, Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio. It was painted at the beginning of the 17th century, in 1602. It was a commission from a Roman nobleman named Ciriaco Mattei. The painting today hangs in the National Gallery in Dublin. Now, how this painting from 1602 managed to end up in our National Gallery in Dublin is a most interesting story. The painting was gifted to the Jesuit community in Leeson Street in Dublin by an Irish paediatrician, Dr. Mary Lee Wilson, in memory of her late husband. Her husband was killed tragically in 1920 in Gorey in County Wexford. And Dr. Mary never got over his death. She was overwhelmed with grief. And she sought comfort and solace from the Jesuit community in Leeson Street, particularly from a Father Finlay. And in an appreciative act, to thank them, and particularly Father Finlay, for their support to her during her time of grief, she gifted them with this beautiful painting. For nearly 50 years, the painting hung in the refectory of the community in Leeson Street. People looked at it practically every day. I'm sure some of them appreciated it, but none of them were aware of its full value until the painting was sent for cleaning and restoration to the National Gallery at the end of the 1980s, beginning of the 1990s. Now, the cleaning and restoration of a painting such as this is a very painstaking and time-consuming process. First of all, layer upon layer of grime has to be removed from the painting. And this takes great skill and indeed a tremendous amount of patience, as you can imagine. And then one has to be careful also with the use of solvents. Too much solvent, and the paint will be damaged. Too little, and the colours will remain hidden. So it's a very delicate, time-consuming, painstaking process. And thankfully, the people in charge in the National Gallery were experts in restoration. And the team was headed by a gentleman who died only about a year ago, Sergio Benedetti. And the late Mr. Benedetti was an expert on Caravaggio. So it was providential that he was heading the restoration team when this painting was left in for cleaning. And we are indebted to Mr. Benedetti and his team for the wonderful work that they did in restoring this masterpiece. And today, you and I, we can go to the National Gallery in Dublin, and because of their efforts, we can appreciate this painting, this masterpiece, in all its brilliance and beauty. Here in St. Joseph's, we're privileged to have a copy of this painting in our church. It adorns our sanctuary, and normally the painting hangs on this wall behind me, the right-hand side wall, as you look up from the entrance of the church. And so this evening, I thought we would reflect on this painting, and indeed on the message that it seeks to convey. The scene is a garden. The Garden of Gethsemane. And Caravaggio has captured here St. Mark's account of the arrest of Jesus. Mark chapter 14, verses 43 to 51. So as I said, the action takes place in a garden at night. So you can notice it's a very dark background. The number of people in the painting, there are 7 in total. So from left to right, we have the evangelist and apostle, St. John. We have Jesus. We have Judas. And we have 3 soldiers. The one here is practically hidden. 3 soldiers of the temple guard. And then we have this man here holding a lantern and observing what's going on. Caravaggio was a master of what's called chiaroscuro, the interplay of light and darkness. And we can see this very much in evidence in this painting. We have the dark background, and we have the dark armour of the soldiers. But we also have light, the main source of light coming from the moon, shining upon the armour of this soldier here. And then the secondary source of light coming from the lantern. Here we have St. John. He's running away, his hands in the air, his mouth wide open, and this flowing crimson cloak, billowing and flowing in the air, and it's caught by one of the soldiers. Now a question. Why is this one of the most popular paintings in our National Gallery in Dublin? Why do people go to view this painting in such large numbers? What is the appeal of this painting? In essence, the taking of Christ is about betrayal. A treacherous kiss given by a false friend results in an innocent man being handed over to soldiers of the temple guard. And as we know, he suffered a brutal death as a result. Psychologists tell us that the experience of betrayal is what they call a dissentering one. A person who is betrayed is thrown off centre. Everything is destabilised for them. And it's very interesting to note how Caravaggio conveys this experience in his painting. Notice that Judas and Jesus are off-centre. They're somewhat to the left of the canvas. Notice the billowing red cloak of St. John. It forms a kind of a semicircle across their heads here. And this circle, if you like, is completed by the intertwining hands of Jesus. So even though they are off-centre, they are the very centre of this painting. They are what the painting is all about. Judas grasps Jesus and is about to kiss him and thereby betray him. Now it's important to look at Jesus here. He's very passive. He's very resigned to what's going on. But he's also deeply upset. Notice the anguished expression on his face, the furrowed brow, and notice his eyes here. They're looking down. The man is in deep anguish, and he's emotionally upset. He's been betrayed by someone that he thought was a friend. And as we look at this painting, we feel for Jesus. We feel for the pain that he is enduring. For some strange reason, this painting, it stops us in our tracks, and it gets us to empathize with the betrayed Christ. Now it's interesting how Caravaggio wants us to reflect on this painting. Notice the shining armour here of the soldier who's grasping Christ by the throat. Perhaps Caravaggio wants to see the gleaming moonlight shining off the armour as a kind of a mirror of self-reflection, an examination of conscience, if you like. The artist Caravaggio wants you and me to reflect as we watch his canvas and look at it. How have I betrayed Jesus? Who are the people that we have betrayed? And indeed, who are the people who have betrayed us? This is an artistic masterpiece. Interestingly, when Dr. Mary Leah Wilson purchased the painting in Edinburgh sometime in the 1920s, she paid £8 sterling for it. Today, if it were to be sold, it would cost millions and millions of euro. It is, as I said, an artistic masterpiece. One of the great paintings of Western art. And the reason it grips us so much is because it's about something that we can empathize with. The sense of being betrayed. And we can also sense and empathize rather with the shame of having betrayed someone. So I think that the message of this painting is very apt for Holy Week. It asks us to reflect on our flawed human nature. We are weak men and women. We are vulnerable. We are fragile. We are frail. We are broken. We say things that we shouldn't say. We do things that we shouldn't do. There are things that we should say, and we fail to say them. And there are things that we should do, and fail to do. We betray one another, and in turn we have been betrayed. And we betray Christ in so many ways every day. So the painting is a clarion call to us on this Monday of Holy Week to reflect on our flawed human nature. And Christ asks us to put forgiveness above revenge. As I say, this painting, it challenges me, and it should challenge you too, to be a better person. And surely that's what we all want to be, better people. And so as I look at this painting, I'd like to say this prayer, if I may. O Lord, how quick we are to recognize the betrayal of others. And how slow, Lord, we are to see how we have betrayed them in turn. Forgive us, Lord, and enable us to be more forgiving. One of the great art historians of the present age is an Englishman called Andrew Graham Dixon. And 10 years ago, to commemorate the 400th anniversary of the death of Caravaggio, he produced this excellent biography, Caravaggio, A Life Sacred and Profane. And if you are interested in reading more about this enigmatic Baroque Italian artist, I'd like to recommend this book. It's exceedingly good, and as I say, it's a very good read, and it's well worth going through it. So that's Andrew Graham Dixon, Caravaggio, A Life Sacred and Profane, published, as I say, 10 years ago in 2010. So thank you for joining me here in St. Joseph's this evening for our reflection on the taking